All right, very good. There we go. Welcome everyone on Instagram. How's everyone doing? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. Welcome everyone on TikTok. Hope you guys are good. If you could drop some hearts, let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. That would be greatly appreciated. We are in a new spot tonight, so bear with me while I'm dealing with new lighting, new balance, all the things until I can get it right. We are also, it looks like we are live here on YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium. So welcome everyone there as well. If I could get a thumbs up, if you guys could let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. So this is a Roots Revival sermon topic. The Art of Intimate Detachment we're focusing on here tonight. So we want to cover, hey, Demetris. Okay, audio and visual is great. Okay, thank you so much. So tonight we're going to be discussing, based on audience request, the different reasons that we struggle in new friendships, new love partnerships, and maybe even old ones, depending on how much you struggle with this, okay? But we're going to be talking about the reasons we struggle to set healthy boundaries, to have connection while remaining detached and within balance of our own personal lives. I'm going to be taking questions and comments as always. So feel free to drop them in the comment section. I am going to have trouble seeing them here on Instagram and TikTok. So if you want to shift, if you have a question, you're going to want to drop it on my YouTube channel at Ask Ivy the Medium. Okay, again, it's YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium. So you guys can switch on over here to get your questions answered. And just want to give this a second to let a couple more people tune in. And I did want to announce also Reiki certification is coming up March 14th. So registration is now open. I'm going to close that down about a week ahead of time. So if you were looking to get your Reiki Masters or your 1 and 2, all right, you may want to look into that. Also, I'm starting a new series on friendship, universal law, spiritual tips for friendship. And a lot of that series, which I'm planning to launch tonight, maybe tomorrow, is going to be based on different questions or problems you guys are having on a regular basis in regards to making new friends, maintaining new friendships, okay, things like this. So that should definitely be interesting. Tune in for that. All right, looks good. I want to go ahead and get right into this because there's a lot to cover tonight. Welcome, everyone. I am your pastor, Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Airwalk, and this is Roots Revival Interfaith, where we believe in the 3 truths of the universe. That is numerology, astrology, and intuitive intelligence. If you follow these 3 truths, they will lead you to karmic resolution, healing, evolution, integrity, ultimately allowing you to go out and give healing to others. We are a federally recognized church and religion. I am not at all associated with Christianity, nor am I associated with the spiritualist religion. So if you want to know more, you can go up onto my website and check out Roots Revival Interfaith. Welcome, Bethany. It is a nice spot change, isn't it? Yes. So this is our new location here for a couple weeks. This is a fireplace in the 1882 Victorian funeral home that was completely covered. I had a strong suspicion that this was under there. And while it took a really long time to expose, and you guys can see the videos on it, I've got it on my restoration, under the restoration category. On all my channels, this is what was underneath. Absolutely amazing. So I'll be talking about that more in upcoming shows. All right, so we are an interactive church. That means that I encourage you guys to drop your questions and your comments. Also, I encourage you to drop your prayer and healing requests. So if you see that someone has dropped a prayer, a healing request, please send them some love, some good energy, some manifestation. And again, for those of you tuning in a little bit late, I'm not going to be able to see the questions on Instagram or TikTok. So if you could please post your questions here on YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium, that's the best place so that I could see everything in one spot here. So today's sermon topic is one that was requested. I encourage you guys to always request whatever it is that you would like to learn more about. But this is something that's been coming up more and more frequently. So I would say in the last 2.5 years or so, I've really noticed it. So what I've designed here today is a sermon topic on the art of intimate detachment, loving from safety, because when people have requested this, they've essentially said that they are bothered and feeling defeated by new friendships, new potential love partnerships, and the way that as soon as they realize they like someone, they have some good banter going, they're spending some time together, they go from feeling confident and self-aware to becoming almost needy, or their attachment style causes them anxiety and they're hyper aware of their attachment style, or they're becoming obsessed with this new friend, this new potential lover, and they find themselves almost ruining the relationship just because of the anxiety, the stress levels that are coming up to the surface. So, I want to talk about the different reasons that's happening for most people. I want to talk about the solutions, and we need to always be mindful that, you could have several different things going on here. I am not here to prescribe or diagnose, but when you recognize some of these more serious issues, this is not the type of problem that can get fixed in a church sermon. This isn't, take Ivy's 5 tips and run with it, and that'll do the trick. This isn't something you should be pushing down and ignoring or thinking that it's them. You must be attracting the wrong people. You're just not going to deal with it, or you're going to isolate, or one day you'll meet the right people. This may be something that needs to be taken to a professional. Okay, this could be something that you are going to need some therapeutic intervention with. So be open to all different forms of healing, okay? Not just today's messages, but, what is the next level for you in these different areas? Because these tend to be pretty in-depth topics. Okay, issues, let's say. I do want to ask everyone before we get into this today, could you please drop a comment of any kind? In particular, I would love to hear where you're tuning in from. It really does help me out in the algorithm. Please give this video a thumbs up and please do subscribe. Also, if you could share this video at this time, I'm sure there's someone on your channel who needs this. It's pretty isolating right now. Okay, we have a lot of loneliness. We have a lot of people struggling to make friends and hold on to relationships right now. So please do share this. We have Melsubi says, hi, Ivy. I remember this room you used to use when I first started watching back in 2020. I love the fireplace. It's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, I love this room too. So there would have been a coffin over there, and then people would have been seated all through this area. And then we have the spiritual shop that's back through there. That would have been the original walkway to the kitchen. Yep. All right. So let's go ahead and get into this today. The art of intimate detachment, loving from a place of safety. So we have these issues where we enter into something new. We want to reflect on love and connection. We want to feel the joy of having a new friend or having a new lover. We want to stay in the high vibrational energy of what's supposed to be one of the most important human experiences that we can have, right? Relationship building, community building, interpersonal exchanges, the potential for deeper levels of intimacy and growth, all the things that come with support from loving another person. But we quickly find that we become obsessive over thinking about the potential loss of the friendship or the relationship. What if that other person were to reject me? What if they ghost? What if this whole thing just dissolves, evaporates, disappears? What then? Where will I be then? A lot of people become obsessed with understanding, almost like they want to become telepathic. What is the other person thinking? What is the other person feeling? What is the other person doing? All right. And I have a lot of clients who come to me with these types of questions, and I'm thinking, it's so early. It's so early in your friendship. It's so early in your work relationship. It's so early in this potential love affair. Like, it's so early for you to even be investing, pouring so much, now money, but like time and effort, energy, thoughts, emotion into this. It's so early. Why are you going there? I really do believe, okay, let's start with number one here. It's coming from these places. And I also think it's important for you guys to understand that the other person feels that. The other person feels whether it's your sort of codependency, your neediness, your overreaching, your pulling, your extraction of their thoughts, your desire to keep them, to hold them, your paranoia. They feel all of that. They feel all of that. And while they probably entered into the friendship, the acquaintanceship, the potential love affair, whatever it is, the dating experience with you, while they probably entered in seeing you from a place of potential, or seeing your higher mind, or seeing the sort of really authentic you, they can quickly start picking up on the things you say, the awkwardness, that weird energy that they can't describe. They may even be having dreams about it, feeling some level of resistance, and they recognize you're not who they thought you were, or you're not there yet. Maybe you're needing to do some healing. You have some growth to do, and they can start to react accordingly. Like a self-fulfilling prophecy, they may create a division in the relationship. They become suspicious. So we have to be careful. Don't think for a minute people don't know when you're obsessively thinking about something, because these are the same tools we use for manifestation, for law of attraction. Okay. Okay. So where could this be coming from, and what do we do about it? Let's start with number one. You may have this experience because you had emotionally unpredictable parents. I would love to hear in the comment section who had this. Emotionally unpredictable parents equates to adults who overthink every single word. They overthink every, time, all the time that you had with this other person, whether it be a new friend, a relationship, someone at work. You overthink the conversations that went on. You replay the conversations, the interactions in your head. You may even prepare ahead of time for like conversations that haven't even happened yet. You assume that you're doing something wrong. You may assume that the other person thinks you did something wrong, so it's not just about self-judgment. It's also this paranoia that they are judging you. Someone you really like is judging you. This is what unfortunately manifests in adulthood, and I'm talking young adulthood and onward, okay? When you had emotionally unpredictable parents or emotionally unavailable parents. So the reality in this situation or relationship is that nothing is wrong. There is nothing wrong. It's in your head. I had someone who recently reached out to me and said, "Oh, over the last year, you've been pulling away." And I said, "What? I haven't noticed that at all. Like that's not even happening." People, and to have held on to it for that long, like, why didn't you bring it up? You know what I mean? The first or the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth time. You know what I mean? You waited all that time to like bring it up. Like the whole thing then is super weird, right? This one is an area where I'm going to suggest, because of course I cannot prescribe or diagnose, but you seek some mental health intervention. Because when we have neglectful or abusive, unavailable parents, these deep-rooted issues, really aren't going to just go away with a bit of shadow work and some of the tricks I'm going to teach you today. We typically need to examine it at, more in depth and use some professional tools. Also, I just think this is something healthy to talk about, because it's usually not something you want to look at. It's not something you ever even want to think about for a minute. And you probably really never speak of it at all. Okay. Or you do it in more casual ways, and it needs to be given some time. You need to honor that you went through this. All right. So I see that with a lot of people. Emotionally unpredictable parents equate to adults who overthink every single detail in other relationships in a paranoid way when nothing was actually wrong or nothing was going on. Number two, another common issue for this, increasingly so in 2026, is betrayal trauma. Betrayal trauma. Right? Has anyone experienced this? Mel Subi, I see your hand raised, so I'm thinking you've experienced the emotionally unavailable parents. Okay, but who has experienced betrayal trauma or has some clue as to what this is? I never heard of betrayal trauma until like 2025, and it struck me. The first time I saw a video on it, I was like, bam, there it is. That can sum up so much of my own personal experiences, in 2 words. There it is. And it's almost like I've been waiting for people to talk about this specific thing, right? But now that I'm spotting it with my clients and my students and like you guys who requested this today, it's so much bigger. Like I thought I was sort of in a vacuum of my own with it. No. This is massive. So betrayal trauma, women have much higher rates of this compared to men. 82% of young adults, 82% of you guys, the younger people, say you have had some form of betrayal trauma. I mean, that made me sick. That's so sad, but I know exactly why it's happening. And we're going to get to that. Okay. So it's not shocking. Disturbing as it is, I don't think it's a shocking number. 82% of you guys have experienced this. So let me break down what the definition is. If you were to like Google this or chat, AI or whatever, chat GPT, this is what you're going to read basically on what betrayal trauma is. Often stemming from intimate partner infidelity, but not exclusively, okay? Or severe breaches of trust, affecting significant portion of the population with over 50%. Now, mind you, most of this is women, but over 50% of the population reporting at least one incident. So you had a partner that cheated on you. You had someone in your intimate circle, doesn't have to be a lover necessarily, but someone in your intimate circle betray you. Over 50% have had that happen. 30 to 60% develop clinically significant PTSD, anxiety or depression. It's highly correlated. I can't talk today. It's highly correlated with mental health struggles, with 22%, with a 22% prevalence of BPD, which is borderline personality disorders. Okay. It leads to traumatic bonding, which is where we're really going to be focusing in today. Okay. So it leads to you choosing other partnerships of any kind where there's going to be traumatic bonding. Now, these are staggering numbers. I mean, this is just horrifying. It also made me feel a little bit better because, like I said, this is the one I can identify with on a personal note. And I who knew I was in such company? There's a shocking amount, I think, when we look at this 82% of young adults. This is what I've been noticing, that you guys are feeling as though you develop trauma bonds with people. You can't really bond at all. You have extraordinary, whether it be social anxiety, depression, this paranoid. You maybe think it's paranoid thinking, but you're really just trying to protect yourself from any more betrayal. All the time. It's affecting all of your potentially decent relationships. And you haven't just with those numbers experienced it directly. You've watched other people around you be betrayed. So this is traumatic to just even witness. The fact that it causes, and this is why I've always said, I will never date a cheater. I will never be friends with someone I know is like willingly cheating. I won't help clients who call so that I can help them cheat better. I don't get involved in any of that because I think it's sociopathic. I think it's psychopathic. I think it's definitely narcissistic. And the fact that we know that this level of betrayal causes PTSD, anxiety, depression, mental health problems, and borderline personality disorder symptoms. I mean, in some, that's insane. Look at the damage that is being done, okay, by toxic individuals. So we have to be careful who we get involved with. So try to take it easy on yourself if you have gone through betrayal trauma, but this is another area where I'm going to say maybe it would be wise to seek out some professional therapy here, because that is significant damage. And sometimes you just need to get it out. You need to talk about it. You need to talk about it in a structured way with someone who has the right tools for you to use. Okay. This is trauma therapy. This isn't just sitting on a counselor's couch and babbling about random things. This is trauma therapy. Betrayal trauma is automatically going to cause for this population of people, an instinctual, often accurate, paranoia and disconnect, an inability to become vulnerable, to authentically share, and to remain regulated, centered, grounded, still, in a state of enjoyment over the relationship. It's a tall order. It's a lot to ask for someone who's been through this. Is it doable? 100%, because I've gotten to a place where I could do it. And I've never received any type of therapy or treatment for betrayal trauma, but I was betrayed by my birth givers. I was tossed out on the streets at 9 years old. I have been betrayed by uncles and cousins and, family. And I mean, all the people who were supposed to, they were obligated, to caretake over me. The original people that were supposed to love and support me, I was betrayed by. And then it was a spiraling effect after that, for the rest of my life. And I feel that I have recovered. I am able to be with people now and, be totally comfortable. And we're going to talk about the tips. Okay. Different tips. I'm going to give you some tips on how you could better do this. So it is possible to get out of this. Don't let them win. Okay. Whoever did this to you, however many people, how many times this happened, don't let them win. You can get back to a healthy place. But I also think there's a huge difference between what is fear and what is intuition, and you need to get past your fears, fear, manipulation, ego, control, into a place of intuitive intelligence, positivity, high vibration, healthy boundaries, self-knowledge, mindfulness. Let's talk about reason number 3. People are having these issues with connection. Reason number 3 is closely connected to reason number 2, and that is that we are in a narc epidemic. And that's why I wasn't shocked necessarily by those numbers. This means that we are born and bred from previous generations that are extremely narcissistic. Not to name names, but the boomer generation has gotten the absolute hands down worst rap on that. That they are narcissistic in a million different ways. And it is extraordinarily traumatic. They weren't necessarily raised that way, but they, have decided that they are the center of the universe and the rest of us are just sort of revolving, around them. They had a lot handed to them, pretty much everything handed to them. And conditions of the world are in the state that they are in because of them. They are to blame. They are the ones still in leadership, ruining everything, have been ruining everything, refuse to change for the most part. Are there some, decent people in that generation? Of course, but they're greatly outnumbered. Then they have produced children with their narcissistic ways. They have produced, generations that have narcissism, literally, or narcissistic tendencies. So I kind of think of it like an infection, right? If the world is like the body, the human body, we have an infection from an impacted wisdom tooth or something, that's quickly going to radiate down to the heart. Most people who have heart disease and stuff like this, they've usually got dental problems and other stuff going on. I mean, this is one of the big causes of heart attacks and whatnot. So, imagine that radiating down to the heart and just breaking everyone's heart, and then the rest of the body, the mind, can't really function. It's a systemic infection. So what we're looking at now are many people who were raised by narcissists or now have narcissistic tendencies, and society has allowed for this to continue on an international scale. So it's rewarded through capitalism, for example, colonization, the patriarchy, right? All of these toxic systems, religion, all of these toxic systems that are based on fear and extraction from people, running people over, using people, hierarchy, brutality, power, authority. All of these toxic systems have become so mainstream that even the people within these systems who have no real power are still involved, okay, often in doing things that are narcissistic to others. And it doesn't make them a full-blown narcissist, but it does mean that they have these narcissistic, hustling, ghosting, inauthentic, dog eat dog type of mentalities, hyper independent. It's just toxic. So this often plays out through friendships or relationships where, let's just say, for example, you really like the person. You're very open to having new friendships. You are open to having a supportive love partner, and you know what you bring to the table. So maybe you are really willing to invest. However, you get involved with people and you find time and time again that they don't have a spine. That they would never be an ally for you. They would never be on the right side of history in fighting in this revolution. They would never even boycott a company or inconvenience themselves in any way. They can be very nice, fake nice to your face, but behind your back, they don't stand for anything. Maybe if there's triangulation or gossip, or somebody were to do you dirty, they don't stand up for you. Thank you for the hearts on TikTok. They don't really care about you. They don't take a stand against it. They don't cut those toxic, gossiping, hateful people off. They play both sides of the fence. They're dealing with you and they're dealing with them. They don't stand for anything. They have no spine. Okay. Which is in my book, a form of narcissism. We have a lot of people who are, they center, whether it be they center the patriarchy, they center, capitalism and money, and maybe they center, their whiteness, maybe they center the wrong things, which is narcissistic. So you have to be careful when you start getting involved with new people. You really want to ask the right questions. You really want to, maybe not directly, okay, but you want to pay attention. You're asking questions about this person in your head. What do they stand for? What are their morals? How have I seen them behave with others? How have they handled certain situations, that were questionable, or toxic? How have they shown a pattern of character, lack thereof, integrity, lack thereof, right? What their personality is or lack thereof. What are the patterns? Because you're not so freaking lonely that you just need to dive into this and try to lock this person down. No, you'll be fine on your own. You need to slow your roll and you need to ask more questions about this person, because I assure you, however they treat others, whether it's not caring about world events, whether it's not caring about those that are marginalized, not caring about what's happening to minorities, not caring about who in the office is getting gossiped about, not caring, clearly they didn't really, about their ex and how they treated their ex, not caring about their other friends, they're going to do that to you. That's what's going to happen to you. So don't let yourself get in there, get battered and bruised and be like, what went wrong? They were a snake. They told you they were a snake. You always knew they were a snake. But in your desperation to have company, bad as it may be, you self-sacrificed. And, you also want to be careful because you're not supposed to be feeding people like that. You're not supposed to be giving social currency or any other type of support to people like that who stand for nothing. If they have no spine, let them go crawl around on the floor, Stop picking them up. bad juju for you. You get negative karmic kickback. Anytime you entertain something, a situation, a person that's below you, or it's below universal law, okay, standards of high vibration, it's toxic, it's negative, you end up getting, not just from that person, but all areas of your life start to deteriorate. Okay, so you need to also look at yourself and say, maybe I need to hold myself accountable. Maybe I need to take more responsibility for who and what I'm entertaining here, instead of just being hyper focused on my loneliness. So we also see within this group, I would say people who are lying about their allyship, they're shapeshifters, they're performative, they don't really stand for anything, okay? But they're even worse than the other ones because they actually like to present themselves as being like progressive or caring, all inclusive, but they're not. You have to trust what people are showing you, especially in regards to the way that they talk about others. People who gossip, I got a lot of people like this coming up to me who want to like be friends. They want to hang out. They think they're going to create a certain closeness by sharing an experience of gossip with me. And if they were gossiping about somebody who is a reckless, hateful tyrant, okay, who we all want to see fall to his demise, I would be like, cool, we can gossip on that. I'm all for it. Let's get it out. Okay. It's a form of healing and self-expression. But when they're gossiping about their best friend, when they're telling me things like their friend's husband and stuff about their love relationship and their other marriages, or, how they had tension with their children and family drama, I should never know about any of that shit. I should never have heard that. I am shocked and appalled when people do this. And I am 46 years old. You would be disgusted to know how frequently this happens. And a lot of these people are older than me, coming to me to want to be friends. And this is what they think building a bond, a friendship is. Okay. So it's an immediate no. I am disgusted with it. And it never changes. Okay. That shit I'm dealing with as I approach 50 is the same junk that happened in middle school. Some people aren't growing. They won't change. They won't work on themselves. You need to be careful, okay, that you're not getting involved in all of this. What are these people? Whether they have no spine or they're the gossipers, they're, the narc epidemic or da-da-da-da-da, what are they? Well, they're opportunists. So I want you to start, as people come to you, well, they want to be your lover, they want to be your friend, they want to be your work friend, you want to deal with them, whatever it is. Ask, is this person an opportunist? And don't give a yes or no answer. Dig for the information. Look at their patterns. Are they an opportunist? Those friendships, relationships with these people, if they fall into any of these categories I just mentioned, are going to become one-sided. It doesn't necessarily start that way, but opportunists will always secure the bag for themselves. They will always put themselves first. And the relationship will inevitably, once they've got you kind of hooked and locked in, it will inevitably turn so that it becomes 100% focused on them. You'll be lucky to get a word in edgewise. If you have something you're celebrating in your life, they really won't respond. They trauma dump on you. They feel like they can come to you with everything and dump and dump and dump. But anytime you go to them, it's an inconvenience or they're unavailable. It will become one-sided. A lot of these people are also jealous. So be careful. Okay. Trolls. Then you go back under the bridge. A lot of these people are jealous, and you have to be careful when you're coming from a place of like loneliness or a bit of isolation, you're going to often have a very open energy. You know, you've probably evaluated where you're a good friend, what you have to offer. So you're sort of radiating that. And then the people who will come are often going to be people who want to snuff your light out, people who want to knock you down, people who are like, who does she think she is? You know, now, ladies, we experience this a lot. For those of you that are straight, men do this to women all the time. It's part of the system. Knock her down, trap her, baby trap her, you know, financially abuse her, screw with her head, gaslight her, make her think, you know, she's loved and she's safe, and drop her like a ton of bricks. Wait a little while, get her back to a place of safety, and do it again and do it again. This is the sick, narcissistic world we live in. That's it. So you need to, you know, also be aware of the different levels of jealousy that may actually be coming toward you. And again, if you can prove that someone, after taking it slow and collecting data and finding patterns, okay, having proof, if you can say, this person is not jealous of me, I think we are on equal ground. I don't see anything toxic really going on here. You know, you can allow for a little bit more of an exchange, give it more time and attention, but don't be giving out of balance from what has already been earned. So I like to say to my clients, make sure before you're giving this much thought, this much emotional energy, this much time to this person, make sure they've already paid for it with tax. They should have already proven who they are, okay, enough that you can start giving, not the other way around. So slow your roll, okay? There are decent people out there, but they are never rushing in. You know, they are never seeming really too good to be true. And they're certainly never hustling others, but won't be hustling you. That's not happening. Let's break down another category where I see this happening a lot. I'm going to get to my messages real quick. Let me just check and see what's going on in here. Hi, Ivy Rivera. Welcome. Everyone tuning in, if you could please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment of any kind, especially letting me know where you're tuning in from. Please do drop your prayer and healing requests. I will be checking these for the next 2 weeks. So even once this is published, I'll be going back over your prayer and healing requests. Donations are appreciated, not required, of course. And please do drop your questions on today's sermon topic. I can only see on YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium. All right. So if you're on Instagram or TikTok, I'm not able to see them. So please come on over here and drop them. Again, it's YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium. Hi, Vanessa. Good to see you. All right. So let's get into another category. This is happening with a lot of people where you are getting involved and you think everything's going well, and all of a sudden you may feel paranoid, almost like you're getting obsessed with them. You wonder why you think on them so much. Maybe you're feeling dysregulated. The anxiety is setting in. You're not sure what's going on. This often happens when you're dealing with someone who hates themselves. I'm not referring to you. I'm talking about them. If they hate themselves, this is often cleverly hidden, especially in romantic partnerships. Let's just use the example of getting on a dating app. How many times have you been on a dating app and, you know, when these guys approach you, these girls approach you, they are really bringing their A game. Okay. They look good, got a fresh cut. I mean, they're looking fit, you know, they are, confident in their bio about what they do, or, you know, who they know, or da. They talk a big game. You get together. It's like, oh yeah, you know, I want someone who's, you know, independent and successful and this and that. And I bring a lot to the table, you know, so I can match it, da. And 6 months in, you realize this person hates themselves. They don't take care of their health. They don't take care of their mental health. They haven't grown at all. I wish I would have slowed my roll, because now I see that their whole past is just wreckage. They are the same now at 36 that they were at 12, and they're not doing anything about it. And they were trying to latch on. They were trying to go for a free ride, right? They were trying to get some free support. They felt entitled to it, because that's all they ever do is extract from others, use up others. Maybe they were raised that way. Maybe they were raised by like a narcissistic mother, or they have some of these abandonment issues or this emotional unavailability we talked about with example number 1, or maybe they just, are this way. They feel as though they don't need to do the work on themselves, or they hate themselves so much that they are justifying using up other people. They're opportunists, right? They're going to use up other people to stay afloat in life, to give them a life that looks normal. People do this with friends. People do this especially with lovers, men to women in particular, but I've seen it all, different situations. So you're dealing with someone and you're feeling dysregulated. You don't have proof of it yet, or you have very little proof, or you've had compassion for them. You're trying to be empathetic toward them. You're having sympathy even, that they kind of hate themselves, that they're stunted in their development, that they're not growing and changing. You're going to hold space. I recommend you don't. I recommend you run for the hills before you end up with betrayal trauma or something worse happening here, okay? People who hate themselves are not going to reveal that to you straight out of the gate, but it won't be long before the relationship is one-sided, before you are feeling unimportant, rejected, abandoned. You don't know what went wrong, what happened, nothing. It's more exposed now. These people are also ticking time bombs. So that could be part of your feeling of dysregulation, because these people end up eventually having a lot of meltdowns, mental, emotional, financial, fights with other people, legal problems, right? They are always going through some type of time bomb. And you're, of course, as the new friend or the new lover, you're realizing it's a matter of time before that negatively affects you. Okay, so maybe you are right. Let's analyze why it is that you're feeling obsessive, dysregulated with thoughts of this person or when dealing with this person. Okay, these types of people are often complicated because they do frequently offer some level of trust. They frequently offer some level of stability. They tend to be pretty active listeners. They tend to be pretty open. They could even be pretty charming. I mean, it takes a lot to cover up that level of self-hatred. They've learned how to create social comforts. It's just that they don't last. Okay. Don't hang out with people who hate themselves. All right. Or you're going to end up being the main caretaker and abandoned and used up. And your job on earth is to love yourself. The only thing you could do for people like that is to be a living example. And I don't mean point out all the time where it's like, I love me and you don't love you. It's just living your life, usually apart from them, be a living example for people on how to take care of yourself, grow, change, evolve, right? Let's talk about category number 5. I think we need to have more of an awareness, especially for those of you that are tuning in and you're younger, because I say this to a lot of my clients who are struggling to make friends or stay stable in new love partnerships. And they all have the same reaction. They're like, what? Where did you hear that? When did they discover that? Like, this is shocking for them. But this is a tale as old as time. I remember hearing about this in the 80s. Okay. So a lot of research has been put into this. Understand that relationships are based on proximity. That's it. They're based on proximity. I saw a meme yesterday that was like, friendships are never based on proximity. Friendships ought to be based on authenticity and X, Y, Z, and never settle for this and never settle for that. I was like, that's wrong. That's wrong. Okay. Like, they are based on proximity, and it's not a crime. It doesn't mean reduce your standards. It's just a fact. And we see this. You know, a lot of people who are from small towns, when I moved to Buffalo, I was shocked. I'd never experienced anything quite like it. It's like a family town, so you can't get in socially as an outsider. They only stay with their own. They only stay with their own. And I had never been to a city that large that stayed with their own like that. So, you know, we see this in places. We see it in closed off, you know, like almost like cultures where they lack community, genuine community. You know, people are warned not to move to cities like that. If you're an outsider, you're not going to be happy with what you find, because the original people there only hang out with their friends from elementary school. They only hang out with their family members. They are still hanging out. And I lived there for like over, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. They only hang out with like their high school buds. It's incredibly hard, you know, to get in. So understand that whether it's a town like that, or you look at, you know, how much people hung out in high school, and then the second they graduated, they never talked to those people again. It was based on proximity. Think of your college friends. Okay. A lot of people realize this when they're about to get married. They're like, well, do I have to have so-and-so and so-and-so as a bridesmaid? I mean, she was my closest college friend. Yeah, but once college ended, you don't even deal with that person anymore. We see this in the workplace. Okay. So most relationships are based on proximity. Whoever you're near, whoever is within arm's reach. And we can form some great relationships and bonds at work, but the minute you quit that job or that person leaves, those relationships, even if we're well-intentioned, tend to disappear. Thank you for the hearts on TikTok. They tend to dissolve, and that's okay. And that's also why a lot of people won't move away from their hometown, you know, or wherever their family is or whatever, because they don't feel like they can go out with their stunted social skills and make it in the real world. You know, this is why it's good. And I recommend everyone solo travel. Thank you for the hearts on TikTok. Solo travel, you know, develop yourself. If you've been in a system your whole life where your friends have been your siblings, your family has been your support system, and your elementary, middle, high school friends, college buds, these are the only people you know, it's time to expand out from that. Okay. And that takes a lot of deliberate intent, because again, relationships are based on proximity. That's not a crime, but it is true. And you should consider it, you know, highly. Another problem with this is that we have no third spaces. So when we look at things like even benches, all of these evil dictator types, they've taken the benches that were used in parks and in, you know, creating almost like third spaces, you know, places where people could hang out for free. And they've made them arched because they don't want people sitting for too long. They would certainly hate to have a homeless man take a decent nap. So they put spikes on them, or they cut them really short. Well, if you're going to cut a freaking bench really short, put another freaking bench over there so people can at least talk, but they don't. They just cut it down so like no one else can fit, so you could sit there alone if you want for a quick second and then get out of here. There are no more third spaces. You know, parks are run down, parks are shut down. I see a lot of people complain about coffee shops. They're like, well, now coffee shops expect you to buy coffee. You should have always been buying a coffee. Okay. You should have. That's a business. That I don't consider coffee shops third spaces, but like libraries, Just think of community spaces that used to be around that just aren't. Okay, they aren't anymore. I mean, even the mall used to be like, I'm a 90s kid, I'm a Zennial. So like the mall was a big thing, spaces like that where you could hang out, whether it be at the food court or just walking around or whatever, right? Gone. Okay, just gone. Everything's gone. So try again when you find yourself feeling defeated, that you're not creating as many friendships, right? Or romantic connections, that you're hoping for. You're really working with very little these days. I mean, it's nearly impossible. And there's a lot of research on that out there. Go fall down a rabbit hole, Google it, and understand what a different culture this really is. It's also really not working when, people say, well, go, join a class or something like this. Like maybe you can join, but a lot of people can't even afford to do that, nor do their schedules allow for that. A lot of the classes and things that, you join, it just may not be possible for you. But if you can, it's good to get in an environment where you will repeatedly be exposed to the same group of people, hoping that some of them there are also looking for friendships. That's wonderful. But if you're going to go into that, don't pair off with someone else. Don't show up with a friend, kind of like solo travel. Go on your own. Okay. Be open to meeting new people. Because if we're not going to pay for it, I mean, it's like we really almost don't have any other way these days, which is really sad. And, it's another pitfall of capitalism is the lack of community, the hyper independence, and the toxic isolation. It causes people to feel so desperate to meet anyone that if they just meet anyone, and there's even if it's just online and is just a little bit of a spark or a little similarity or a follow-up conversation, they're ready to clutch, they're ready to grasp, they're ready to overreach. There's a desperation because who knows when you're going to feel it again. So we need to take that down a notch. Give yourself multiple options to go out and meet new people and slow your roll. Number 6, and this is the last one I'm going to talk about today, and then I'm going to get into some of these tips. Number 6. Also, for those of you tuning in late, if you didn't hear my announcement at the beginning, I'm starting a series on friendship based on spiritual and universal laws. Okay, so I'm probably going to launch the first video tonight or tomorrow, and I'm looking to take all of your, questions, support that series. It'll be a bunch of short vids and tips. So this is something I bring up now because number 6 is about Gen Z in particular. All right, so something that has been discovered with Gen Z, who is struggling the most to feel comfortable in new friendships, to make new friendships, to sustain them. They are the least sexually active. They are the least likely to get involved in any kind of a romantic partnership. They're not having any of this. So they're not having any type of intimate relationships or connections, really. I'm not talking about everyone, obviously, but a lot of Gen Z is having this issue, and it's something that's bothering them tremendously. I would say that this extends into some millennials too, based on my client base and my students. I would say that the biggest reason with Gen Z is that there has been a real attitude about friendship that it is like exclusive. It's exclusionary. Is that a word? It is cliquey. It is culty. Gen Z, more than any other generation, has proven time and time again to want one bestie. I need a bestie. I need a BFF. I need a best friend. and they become enmeshed with this one other person, right? So it's almost like a codependency. It's almost like a familial bond between one other person. And then, of course, it's devastating if that doesn't last, it breaks up for some reason, and they can really struggle to recreate it with others. But that sort of codependent mentality that you have to have this one person is something I see even in some older Gen Xers. It's like they're looking for the best friend, they're looking for the bestie, they're looking for the one, the love of their life, their twin flame, which isn't even a real thing. They're desperate to find this one person that needs to like fulfill everything for them. And as a Zennial, I want to go back to, and this will actually be the next church service that I'm going to host, where I'm going to talk about Zennials and the astrology, the numerology, the power of Zennials, what we're here to do and teach. But like Zennials, for example, we are the group that's smack dab between like Gen X. Like we typically can't identify with much of anything from Gen X, but we also really don't fully identify with millennials. We were right sandwiched in between. And we are like, I'm 1979, for example. Okay. So just a couple years behind me, a couple years ahead. Like we're the Zennials. We did have this unplugged eye to eye connection with others. We did have real community. And we also had tech. We had social media, we had cell phones, we had the best of both worlds. So we weren't disconnected like, a lot of millennials are, where they spent all their time like in, the online world, or Gen X who can't transition very easily to the online world. They prefer everything to be, old school. It's for Zennials, it's both. It was always both. And I think that the key here for Gen Z in particular, but all of you who tend to do this, Zennials knew, and I would love to hear how many of you in the comment section identify with this. We knew how to freaking market ourselves. We knew how to travel. We knew how to talk to anyone. We knew how to go to house parties, where we didn't know anyone. We knew how to navigate the world from an authentic place. We had amazing music. We had amazing culture within that music. We had, all of the things that were required to allow people to come together and have these raw experiences, without this technology distraction and influence that causes detachment in a lot of ways. But then we also had the tech, the online spaces, and we learned how to use and transfer all of those life skills, social skills, organic skills online. And so we just sort of doubled our opportunities with connecting with people. We learned how to do it in another way. This is incredibly savvy information and skills. And it doesn't come naturally to Gen X or millennials. And Gen Z is struggling, I think, the most with this and needs to just learn, some new tricks of the trade. So I think Zennials are really going to be leading the way in that. Anyways, we'll talk about that more on the next sermon topic. Zennials and why they're here. But I think this ability that Zennials had to be friends with everyone. I remember, for example, when I was in high school and I was, I was dealing with homelessness. So I had my own apartment. I was 15. I had my own apartment. So I was dealing with other homeless teens from across the country, who were being like hidden under hidden names and stuff like that in the town where I was in. I was dealing with other homeless teens who, whose parents, like, they couldn't stay at their house. I was still trying to go to school. So I had friends from my cheerleading squad. I had friends from the art classroom, because I did ceramics. I took like 6 independent studies in that. I had musician friends. I had sports friends. I had, like, anywhere I went, I was able, to hang out with different groups of people. And it really wasn't unusual. It was something we all did to a degree. And this idea that some people have, Gen Z in particular, but that you have to have that one best friend, means that you are putting too much pressure. You are spreading yourself too thin. You are demanding too much. And that codependency, once it sits in with you guys and you only kind of have each other and everyone else is on the outside and you've got this cliquey nature, it's not going to go well. It goes sour real quick. Spread the love around. Try not to get into those systems anymore. There is I think also just some basic social skills, that could be improved upon. And I know there's a lot of joking on like videos and whatever, but everyone's like picking on Gen Z, how they go up and they say like, "Oh, I love your hat." And Gen Z's like scoffing at them, or like, "You happy you did that?" Or like, "You had to come up and make things awkward," or like, "Who are you talking to? Are you talking to me?" Like, you guys are going to have to get the stick out. Okay. You're going to have to learn to do this, or you're going to just keep in this cycle. You want to get out, you got to get out. You got to do the work to get out. Okay. Here are some signs, that you're doing this, that you're leaning into these problems here. You get involved again. Let's just review. You get involved in a new love partnership. You get involved in a new friendship, whatever. And you're hoping to feel love. You're hoping to feel comfort. You're hoping to feel happiness. You're hoping to enjoy the support that you can give and receive. But instead, shortly after, you catch yourself overthinking. You start to feel that you have a dysregulated nervous system. You realize that you're becoming obsessive over the other person. You are becoming paranoid that they're going to leave, that they don't like you, that you did something wrong. You're rehashing conversations in your head all the time. You're planning conversations ahead. You are becoming codependent. Maybe you think you have limerence. And this isn't a show about limerence, okay? But you may want to Google that. Are you creating a fictitious world with this other person? Maybe. In general, you realize there is a lack of boundaries and you want to get back in control. Okay, because you can't enjoy it this way. So how do you do that? Bethany Renner said the mall. Now that was the third space. The mall was the third space. The mall is still, I guess, a third space. There are just no stores and the malls are all abandoned. The image of the malls being ghost malls now is so symbolic of friendships and love affairs. Okay, it's like, there it is. This is what happens when we take this space away. It's of course, it was inevitable. All right, so what can you do? Solutions to fix, prevent, or use, along with therapy and other healing tools. Solutions. Number 1, evaluate your worth. There is one common denominator that I have seen with everyone who comes to me with this problem, and that is that they have low self-worth. They are more concerned over what this other person thinks of them than they are how they think of themselves. They don't think of themselves enough. They're willing to overreach, to overextend, to hold space for this other person, to give. They want more. Oh, I hope this relationship gets locked down. I hope this friendship can deepen. And they haven't even seen that this person is worth that. They've already sold themselves short. That is a sign that you have no self-worth. So evaluate your worth. Okay? Make lists. Start dating yourself. Make a list of how great you are, how fantastic you are, what you bring to the table, what makes you a good friend. Okay? What you love about yourself. Be honest too. Maybe you don't have a lot of self-worth because you're not bringing much to the table. And this is a hard pill to swallow. But maybe you don't have self-worth because you're not worth a whole heck of a lot in regards to interpersonal connections like that. Like maybe, you are selfish. Maybe you are one-sided. Maybe you are greedy. Maybe you are kind of hustling people or almost manipulating people so that you can get these relationships locked down before they figure out who you really are. Maybe you're wearing a mask. Maybe you're an opportunist. Maybe you have narcissistic tendencies. Maybe you haven't worked on your shit. Okay. Do you need to improve? Well, stop worrying that you're going to be alone. Stop feeding codependency and stop feeling like you're worthless. Just evaluate your worth and accept that there are areas that we all need to improve upon. Make a list and start improving. This is about knowing who you are. When you know who you are, you don't question whether or not you're worth it. Okay, someone else's time, dedication, you don't question that. So clearly you don't know. And that's either because there's a whole lot there and you're overlooking it, or there's not much there and you should develop some of it. Number 3, don't just look for company. Okay, too many people are just looking to have someone, anyone, a space holder, and anyone will do. Okay, I just need some company. I just need some company. I assure you, you don't. All right, you can get company by like going to the bar. You can get company by going to the restaurant. You can get company by volunteering in your community. There's a ton of need. You can get company, by being the old guy at the grocery store or whatever who talks to everybody. There are a million ways to get company. You don't need just any kind of company. What you want is quality connection. There are a lot of people who are okay with just the occasional sense of having company. And that keeps them going. That keeps their social battery full. For a long time, they keep it light. There's not really any depth there. These are really technically acquaintances, but they're good with that. That's all they need. But what you're looking for is quality. And this is going to require significant investment, and it's going to require that you're not wasting a lot of time on bad company. The universe hears the way you think. The universe hears what you're asking for, what you're claiming, what you're manifesting. The universe also sees whether or not you're in alignment with what you say you want. And if you say to the universe, I want high quality partnerships, friendships, relationships, love affairs, and then you entertain whatever random company crumbs have fallen on the floor, you're entertaining all of these below you type of things, the universe says, this person isn't serious. They're entertaining the wrong thing deliberately, repeatedly. So you don't get the higher vibration because you're not in alignment with it. Okay. Can't go to the bank and be like, I need $175,000 and you've got $55 in there, right? They're going to laugh in your face. You have to be able to pay for it. So remember that you don't want company. You want quality. A lot of people are in romantic partnerships like that. Okay. And if you're feeling unfulfilled in your partnership, you may want to check your mate, because often And this is why women have such a higher rate of betrayal trauma. You know, that man is not with you because he loves you or he wants to be. It's because he needs company. He wants the free labor. He wants the free emotional labor. You're making a life for him, and he doesn't even want to be there. So be careful. A lot of people, a lot of crappy friends just want company. They don't care. They don't care about the quality at all. They don't. And you feel that. And you feel it as rejection. You feel it as paranoia. You feel it as suspicion. Okay? So watch the company you keep. Make sure it's quality. Number 4, comparison is the thief of joy. It truly, truly is. It's also the thief of truth. So don't compare, you know, some of these people, like I said earlier, and I'm, you know, approaching 50 years old here in a bit. Some of the people who still approach me, who want to be friends, think that our original conversations, or when we go, we, you know, hang out, or we take it for a test run, they think it's appropriate to talk to me about their best friend, their best friend's husband, their personal lives. They share all this gossip of private information with people they claim to love. And I'm disgusted, of course. And then I go onto my social media and I see them having drinks or dinner or spending the holidays with them, taking selfies together, right? Don't compare yourself. Don't compare the lack of friendships or loving, you know, romantic partnership that you have. Don't compare to other people, because these phony baloney nonsensical situations are going on around the clock. And the more you dig, okay, the deeper the evil goes. Evil roots, I'm telling you. Same thing with cheaters. Okay? A lot of cheaters are out there and then cozying up to their love partners, you know, online. Be careful thinking that you, on your own, independent, working on yourself, patiently waiting and evaluating, you know, healthy relationships that will come your way. Don't think that that's lower or less than what you see other people pretending to have together. The rats will always congregate. Okay. And you don't want to be with that group. Number 5. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, and then I'm going to get to your questions. So if you have a question on today's sermon topic or a comment, please switch over to YouTube at Ask Ivy the Medium, because I can actually see the feed over here. Or if someone's on one of the other platforms, you want to transfer it for me, because I can't see Instagram or TikTok, that would be great. But we're going to get into your questions here in just a second. But the last thing I want to give you guys as a tip, I touched on this briefly earlier. Slow the fuck down. This isn't a race to the finish line. You're not starving. Okay? You're fine. What in you is causing you to rush? That's what needs to be evaluated. Not what went wrong, or are they thinking about me, or why am I feeling obsessed? Why are you rushing? What is the rush? Where is the fire? Okay? To lock this friendship down, to lock this lover down. Where's the fire? Is it because you believe you have no self-worth and you're afraid that mask is going to slip any minute now? Is it because, you know, you want certain things out of them, and maybe you are an opportunist, and so you better hurry up and extract as much as you can? Is it because you have betrayal trauma, abandonment wounds? You know, you had emotionally unavailable parents. Is it one of the other reasons that we talked about? Have you just not spent enough time looking at your worth? Okay. Do you not know that you're worth waiting for and going slow? Making sure that this is safe, making sure that it's quality, making sure that they can pay for whatever you're about to give. by keeping it in balance, that there's going to be nice, reciprocity, a give and take. Why are you rushing? Ask yourself that, and we're probably going to get to the root of all of this. I probably could have opened and closed with that and wrapped this whole thing up in 5 minutes, okay? But whatever. I saved the best for last, okay? Ask yourself, why am I rushing? Where's the fire? What is this really about? What is this about? And again, if you're really, truly struggling to find the answers, you're always welcome to book a reading with me, but you may also want to talk to a therapist about it. Get to the bottom of it, because if there are significant issues here, you're going to need tools. You're going to have to use tools to create a new life for yourself. So don't go it alone. I want everyone to remember this new research that came out in 2025. I've spoken on it several times. Now, this was mostly about heterosexual relationships and the way that men were dealing with women. Okay, being raised up in the patriarchy. However, before I ever heard that research and these statistics and stuff come out, I have been saying this for years. I know this to be true. And it isn't just about men toward women in heterosexual relationships. A lot of people do this. And this is a realistic time frame to have to deal with. So if you get nothing else out of this today, I want you to remember this. The first mask slips at 6 months. I know they always say in love, it's 3 months because it's chemical. That's not really a mask. That's just chemical stuff, calming down. Okay. Your libido is going to take a little bit of a nap around that time. You start to not see that person with rose-colored glasses around 3 months. That's fine. That's fair. You start to see them as a human being. It's like the lights are on in the club, or it's the next morning after you slept together. You're like, what happened there? Who was I dancing with? What's wet over there? What's that smell? Like, this can't be it. Like, this never happened. Okay. That's true. But the real mask, if there is a mask, is going to slip at 6 months out. You don't get another one. The second mask slips not until 1.5 years. And this is where most people screw up. Women in particular, rushing in. This is why we have betrayal trauma at 82%. Okay. Rushing in. That after that 6 month mark, we were already probably rushing a bit, but 6 months, their mask slips and we get into fix it mode. I'm going to hold space. There's good stuff here. I would like for things to go back to the way they were. Okay. They're still, they're maybe making promises, or, you're thinking things can get better. The second mask slips at 1.5 years. And the third mask slips at 3 years. I would argue it's somewhere between 3 years and like 3 years and 7-8 months. The third mask slips off. And that's where you may find that you're dealing with a deceitful friend. You're dealing with someone who treats other people like garbage. You're dealing with a lover who's cheating. You're dealing with someone who's an opportunist. You're dealing with someone, who was using you as a space holder. You're dealing with someone who ghosts you regularly. You are in a full-on one-sided psycho circumstance and you don't know how the hell you got there because you weren't paying attention, okay, when the masks slipped. So expect them. Take it slow, all right, and prepare. Meaning you expect these things to happen until someone can prove otherwise. And you give accordingly. You don't give in advance, okay? You don't give credit out. You give based on what the other person is giving. And if they pull back or they become inconsistent, they're unavailable, so are you, right? So are you. They want to come back and give again, be hesitant. They're showing consistency, but you want to try, okay, give a little bit. They do it again. Now you're unavailable. You're unavailable. I would also say the first red flag is the last red flag, and that sounds harsh, but we really need to be faster. We are a narcissistic society. So be careful here. Guard yourself, love yourself, know your quality, take care of you. The more you love you, the more you're radiating love in general, and the more you can attract genuine love. And that can come in a million different ways. It doesn't have to be through a bestie or the lover of my life. It doesn't have to be that way. So lighten up and be open to exploration. I am going to get into any questions or comments that are coming up here. Let's see what we've got. Boop. Is this going to cover my face? It is. So I'm going to have to take it off. I'm dealing with a new setup here, guys. So I have to tweak some things for sure. Let me see though. Now I can't see it at all. Okay, there we go. So this is a question from Maraid. She says, any tips on some ways we can still get close to potential romantic partners, but not get too attached that it causes blind spots? Basically, ways to keep our walls up, but still allow connection. Well, that's what I mean when I say that you need to understand how much they're giving, how much you're receiving, whether or not it's consistent. A lot of people like to talk about their intentions, about their personality, about who they are, but they don't actually deliver on any of that. So it's not paying attention to their words, but paying attention to what they actually bring energetically. How much time, attention, affection, stability do they bring to the relationship? And then you do your evaluation and you say, okay, that's how much I'm willing to give then. Now, your problem here, and I can see that with this question, is that you find yourself getting attached and overlooking blind spots. You don't have blind spots. You have selective hearing. You don't get attached to someone and all of a sudden become blind. You overreach with people and then decide that because you're developing an almost codependent addiction to them, you're getting high off your supply, that you're going to ignore all the red flags. If you go slow, you are going to be able to see any red flags. These aren't blind spots. This is selective hearing. It's selective seeing. So one of the issues that can happen with this is that you're getting a rush, adrenaline, oxy, dopamine hits. A lot of people are addicted to romantic relationships and things like limerence because it is like a dopamine hit. Okay. So you may want to look into other ways to get your dopamine hits. There's a phenomenon among, I've even caught myself doing this because I was diagnosed with OCD when I was a little kid. But they say OCD in women with ADHD, kind of like limerence, but it's more like you become obsessed with someone when you meet them. And then within a matter of weeks, you don't even remember their name. So maybe you're addicted to the hit. Maybe you're addicted to the high, but you could do that with a million other things, not just people. Okay. Interests, hobbies, for example. I think that what you need to get to the root of is why it is, okay, that you are allowing yourself to get too attached, because getting too attached doesn't just happen. It's a choice. We either go, I'm gonna fling myself into this. You know what I mean? It's like doing a belly flop on the water of the ocean. You're like, I'm in the, I'm consumed. It's all consuming. I am enmeshed. It's like, that's a choice. You don't have to jump off without a life preserver or a rescue boat or don't do that. Don't dive into the deep, deep waters, stay on shore. There's got to be a reason you're rushing in. So get to the root of that. Okay. Also the way that you worded this, I like this. How do we keep our walls up, but still have connection? I think that when you are dealing with, again, whether this is friendship, this is a work relationship. This is even a family member, or a lover. When you want to have connection with these people, you want to allow for connection. But you need to have a wall up. This is all about premeditated boundaries. So you're going to have to analyze what happened, where the sin occurred, where the red flag is, or if it's just that things, you don't want them to get out of balance yet, you don't want to overgive. So that's just about self-discipline, but you need to understand why you feel that you need to have some walls up. And then, maybe even writing it out, having a list of how you're going to create a boundary, hold a boundary, keep a boundary. That's it. You just need to have more of a plan. Okay. Because again, going into this willy-nilly, boundaries can be crossed. And if you are dealing with people who intend to cross a boundary, I assure you, they're probably going to outsmart you at least once or twice. Okay. Which should be an immediate no contact. And the last piece of information, the last clue you're looking for. Okay. So plan ahead. Yeah. We hope to not have to have a lot of walls up, but I would also say that there's nothing wrong with always keeping some things in your life to yourself. I have found that people who I thought were solid members of my life, they have shown in time repeatedly, even if it took 16, 20 or plus years, to at some point go sour, go dark, become a disappointment. Maybe, I just sort of outgrew them, or, there was some opportunity for them to make a big change in their life and they just didn't. And things become unfortunate or imbalanced. It happens all the time. So even with those people you have in your life where you're like, I would love for them to be here forever, they're also human. They're nothing but a sack of energy in a meat suit, as are you. It's about whether or not they grow. Are they capable of change? Are they mindful? Are they moral? Right? Do they have an ethical code of conduct? Are they continuously trying to evolve? Are they in harmony with the universe? Do they care about others? I mean, these are signs that you could be dealing with someone who will continue to grow, but at any point that could be turned off like a light switch. Okay. So we never 100% give ourselves over and become entirely vulnerable without any walls whatsoever to another human being. I wouldn't recommend it. Even with your own self, you have to be, vigilant. You have to be diligent on your growth every day. So even when it's good, it could change at any time. And I have seen it more than not. Love and Beloved says, thank you for speaking on this topic. It reminds me to look at Erickson's first stage of development, trust versus mistrust. Trust the universe to bring better now than we had as a child. Takes work, but it is worth it. Yes. And then she says, thank you also for saying that comparison is the thief of joy. It's a good reminder. I needed that 100%. And that really starts to become a big problem when we're hoping for more out of our relationships or more relationships in general, and feeling this level of rejection, paranoia, obsession. We don't know where it's coming from. We automatically start comparing to other people around us. So I love that. Love and Beloved is bringing up Erickson's first stage of development. Yes, because earlier in this sermon, we were talking about the number one cause of this problem for people is emotionally unpredictable parents. Okay. But it's so true. Okay. So if you're not familiar with his theories and research, you may want to go look that up. Trust versus mistrust and how it affects everything else after that. I would also say that for a lot of people, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, something else you may want to look into. A lot of people right now don't have their basic needs met. food, shelter, safety in their country, okay, security, physical safety, well-being, mental health care. When we don't have these things, and most Americans don't at this point, it's got to be dealt with before you can get on to building healthy friendships, relationships, romantic partnerships. Is that always the case? Maybe not. I mean, but, I agree with the hierarchy a lot. And so we are dealing in unique times right now, especially here in the States. And maybe you can meet more people, on that basis, or talking about those things, or coming into community about those things. But just be careful with the trauma dumping on each other. Traditionally, it's best to have those needs met so that we can explore other, lighter topics like friendship and romance and da 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 da. But right now, people are just barely even getting by. Okay, so it's a lot to ask. Take it easy on yourselves. Understand, which is why I chose to make today more about education and where this problem is coming from. Because for a lot of you, if you could just get educated on it, you're like, I'm good. That's all I really needed was a little bit of a head check. That makes sense. I can figure out the rest from here. And I really hope that you do. And please do share in the comment section, where you are in your development. If this has helped you, what other sermon topics you would like to see me speak on. Again, I will be back. The next sermon topic I'll be doing is going to be on Zennials, how we are astrologically, numerologically, and, as part of the revolution, leading in some very specific, distinct ways that are massively important for the younger and older generations to pay attention to. So if you are a Zennial, be sure to follow and tune in. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Don't forget to drop your prayer and healing requests. I will be checking back in the comment section, praying and manifesting over you for about 2 weeks. Okay, and I will also see you guys tomorrow for my love and relationships show back here, 9 p.m. Eastern, taking all of your questions on any relationships. Have a good night, everyone.